you looking to learn more about your spiritual journey? Are you on a healing journey? Have you tried conventional ways of healing but didn't get the results you desired? If so, this podcast is for you. My name is Reverend Dr. Jackie Cope, and I'm a metaphysical minister, intuitive guide, and teacher. Here at Raven Rabbit, we believe that your ancestors, spiritual guides, and divine self are ready and eager to help you heal and prosper. We approach life, healing, and happiness through a holistic, indigenous spiritual lens to create the lives we want. Join me to radically change your life today. Hello, and welcome to episode 54 Standing at the Threshold: What It Took to Choose Myself. I am so glad that you're here today. Welcome, welcome. If this is your first time, welcome to the Wellness Studio podcast. We talk about all things spirituality on this podcast, and what we ultimately work towards is that really deep expression of self-love here and just experiencing life to the fullest. So my returning listeners, thank you for being here. My new listeners, I welcome you. It is so great that you're here, and I can't wait for you to dive into the world of Raven Rabbit, because there is just so much here for you to start your healing journey, your spiritual journey, to continue it, to deepen it. There's just so much for everybody here. So I'm so glad that I am the one who's here facilitating this for you, and it is my honor. So with that, I want to start with an invocation this morning. So, Father God, universe, source, creator, thank you for having us in this space to meet together in this beautiful platform and to share our lived experiences and to share what to do with it as we evolve as spiritual beings and as we evolve through our spiritual journey and on this self-love path that we're on. I pray that self-love finds all of my clients and listeners, and that they're deeply moved through the act of self-love and all that it has to offer. Anything that is meant for them to hear today, I hope it really settles and resonates, and anything that is not needed, just push it to the side. I invite our angels, masters, guides in this conversation with us. We are in a sacred space as we have this conversation, and only truth and highest and best can come through. And so it is. So thank you so much for being in this conversation with me today. There is a moment that comes for all of us, and it is quiet, but it's powerful. And it feels like standing at the edge of something. Looking at your life, look at the life you have been living when you're on that edge. And the life that's trying to be born through you because you see this other side. So you're at this threshold. And crossing that threshold requires one thing, I think. And that one thing is choosing yourself. And sometimes that can be the hardest thing. So today I want to talk about why choosing yourself matters. I don't want to do it in a motivational speaker way, but in a real, lived, and sometimes uncomfortable way that I've experienced in my own life. So I'm going to give you 5 reasons today for choosing yourself and why it is not optional and it is absolutely essential. So 1, you need to choose yourself to experience happiness. So for most of my life, happiness sat at the bottom of my list. I told myself that I would be happy once everything was handled, once everything else was okay. Once this project was done, once this work was done, once the responsibilities were met, once the bills were paid. The list could go on and on. But it was always something. Once this week is over, once break comes, and then I could be happy. So happiness was always at the bottom of my list. And what actually happened was that happiness is something that became optional. And I reflected that out into the universe, as within, so without, when we think about that spiritual law. If I'm making happiness an option, the universe is going to reflect that back to me with happiness as an option rather than a must, something that we choose and must experience and have. So happiness became something nice to have if there was leftover time. And there was rarely leftover time. We all know that. Think about your life and all of your responsibilities. When is there really leftover time? It's all accounted for in some way. But I also like to say the affirmation, there's always enough time for the right work. And you could shift that too a little bit. There's always enough time for the right things. There's always enough time for yourself. There's always just enough time. So get in that affirmation into your head. What I learned is that when happiness is lost, life feels heavy. Everything feels harder than it needs to be. When I began choosing myself, even in small ways, I noticed something shifting. Things flowed more smoothly, decisions became clearer, and my nervous system softened. That is the biggest one. When I've chose happiness now on this path that I'm on, my nervous system is so much more regulated and softened, and not so many things throw me down the emotional roller coaster. So happiness is not a luxury. It is a requirement. And we have to get that built into our life, in our mind, into our programming, into our neural pathways. Choosing yourself means intentionally structuring your days to include joy. And that joy can look like all sorts of things. And sometimes it could be very small. That's fine. It could be a quiet moment. So in the morning when I wake up, I try to greet my masters, guides, angels, and just start the day off with them. It's really small and it brings that joy into my life because I know I'm not alone. Because you've heard my other podcast episodes about healing feeling lonely back in episode 51. But when I call in my guides and angels and greet them for the day, I don't feel that loneliness. Joy could be a walk. So my husband really enjoys this one, getting outside, walking, hiking. That's something that brings him joy. A laugh. Many of us do love to laugh. I do love some good humor. Sometimes it's just a short pause in your day. When I used to work in more of a corporate 9 to 5 position when I was director of education, I would pause. I would stop at my desk, put my feet on the ground, take some grounding breaths, and that would help me and bring me back to myself. And sometimes happiness can be really big. It could be a project you're working on, a dream, a hobby, a creative calling you refuse to abandon anymore. So sometimes happiness can be those really big things. And for me, it's beading and painting and music and writing and learning and reading. So those are some of my bigger things that I have to carve out time in my day and be like, today I'm going to do this on my beading. Today I'm going to work on some writing and carve that out. When you are happy, life responds differently to you. That's just how it is. As within, so without. When you are happy within, the world around you is going to start reflecting back differently. And that is not selfish. Not at all. Okay? That is wisdom, joy, affirmations coming to a fruition. It's manifestation coming to fruition. Okay? Life responds differently to you when you allow yourself and choose. You have to force you to choose that happiness. Do not set it to the side. Okay, 2. You need to choose yourself to fill your cup. So before it was like happiness. So this one's just a little bit different because when we choose ourselves, that can mean a slew of things, but you have to choose to fill your cup. We hear this phrase all of the time, but let us be honest about what it really means. If your glass is empty, there's nothing to pour. And when you pour from an empty place, it's going to cost you. And I spent years giving from this depleted place. So you're helping, you're holding, you're fixing, you're showing up, you're being available, you're people pleasing. You're going above and beyond. There's all of these things that you're doing that you could potentially be pouring from an empty place. So, what I did not realize was how many unnecessary energy exchanges I was making by doing that. And it carried resentment quietly, and it lived in my generosity. And I felt exhausted trying to be everything for everyone all of the time. Choosing myself meant learning to fill my own cup first. Not so I could stop giving, but so I could give without losing myself. When you're full, your giving is clean, and that's a strong energy exchange. That's what we want to experience. It's not transactional, it's not draining, it's rooted in abundance instead of obligation. And now filling our cup could look like many things. So, happiness, I gave you some examples of that, like taking a pause, going on a walk, working on your project. Filling your cup, one portion of your cup is going to be happiness. Okay, but there's so many aspects to us to fill up our cup. And that takes me back to thinking about the medicine wheel and what we're doing for the four major aspects of our life. Okay, like I've told you before, Raven Rabbit is an indigenous approach to life healing and happiness. So we need to go back to our medicine wheel teachings and think about the four aspects of life, which are mental, spiritual, emotional, and social. We have to make sure that those four categories are filled up so that our cup is full. So when it comes to mental, are you being stimulated intellectually? Are you reading something, watching something of substance? We want our mental capacity to be filled up and experience this growing and stretching through learning. Okay, things that might take away from our mental cup: scrolling on social media for hours, vegging out in front of the TV, doing the mundane. You can change some of the mundane by listening to a podcast, right? And stretching your mind. So we have that mental portion of the cup. Then we have our social portion of the cup. So how are we socializing with others? Are we socializing? Are we reaching out? Are we having meaningful connections? This one can be really difficult, but is very positive and can be done. So maybe you have a great, strong group of friends. Use that in filling yourself up socially. Maybe you have one friend to reach out to. Maybe it's time to make a friend to gain that social aspect. Okay, and then we have emotional side of our cup. We need to make sure our emotions are being filled. So that goes kind of back to happiness. Are we getting happiness, joy? And I think about our energy emotions levels here, levels of emotional energy. We want to feel bliss, peace, serenity, lightness, ecstasy, unconditional love, humor, happiness, like we talked about before, love, your intuition, appreciation, power, beauty, creativity, imagination, and joy. Those are all on the very high level of the energy frequency field. When we feel those things, our emotional cup becomes full. So we got mental, spiritual, emotional, and then we have our physical portion of our cup that needs to be filled. And that can be exercising, walking, stretching, yoga, what we put into our bodies via food, alcohol, consumption. What are you consuming? Because some of it is going to fill you up and some of it is going to drain you. So we need to really think about how we are physically fueling and filling our bodies. Okay, so that is 2. You need to choose yourself to fill your cup. And that goes back to understanding your 4 aspects of the medicine wheel: mental, social, emotional, and physical. Hey, can I pause you right here for just a second? If this episode is resonating with you, if something in your chest feels stirred, it's probably because we're touching on things that live beneath the surface, the thoughts you don't always say out loud, the patterns you've learned to carry, the quiet ways self doubt and self hate show up in everyday life. This is the kind of work I go much deeper into inside of my live container called Return to Love. Return to Love isn't about fixing yourself, it's about remembering who you are. We work with shadow healing, affirmative prayer, guided meditation, and soul level reflection to gently unlearn self hate and relearn unconditional self love, the kind that stays with you long after the course ends. If you've been nodding along in this episode and thinking, she's talking about me, then this might be your invitation. Doors are open right now if you're listening in real time, and the doors close January 19th, 2026. You can find all the details on ravenrabbit.com or through the link in the show notes. All right, let's go back to the episode. Number 3, you need to choose yourself to experience, insert your God term here. So you need to choose yourself to experience God, experience universe, experience creator, experience Mother Nature, whatever your universal source for all that is. If you want to experience it, you have to choose yourself. And this one may feel really big, but it's very deeply simple. We are not separate from Source. We are expressions of Source. Source is the master creator of all things, and we share that creative energy with Source. When you choose yourself, you choose to experience creation through your own life, through your ideas, your desires, your visions. When you deny your dreams, you suppress what needs to be created through you. You deny an experience of the divine. All right? So, if we want to experience God and universe and the divine, we have to choose ourselves. If we don't choose ourselves, we are denying that experience of feeling that divine energy. Choosing yourself is choosing to co-create with Source. It is saying yes to the impulse to build, to dream, to express, and to become. And that is such sacred, inspirational energy to be living within. And now that I'm an entrepreneur, I feel myself living there a lot. The job I had previously, too, as a teacher, I felt it a lot through my lesson planning, unit planning, curriculum maps. I had a very creatively expressive job. If you don't have a creatively expressive job, you need to find it in your own way to help cultivate that inspiration energy. Okay, 4. You need to choose yourself because you matter. This one took me the longest to believe. Not so much intellectually, yeah, you hear I matter. I need to take care of my body. I need to be careful what I say to myself. We know these things to be true, but it's hard to believe it energetically. You can say you matter all day long, but until you feel it, your life will reflect the opposite. When I began choosing myself, I noticed something subtle but powerful. People started responding to me differently. Opportunities are starting to show up differently. Boundaries feel easier to hold now because I choose myself. Why? Because energy speaks louder than the words that we use. When you believe you matter, others feel it. When you treat yourself as valuable, the world adjusts accordingly. It is your responsibility to cultivate the energy you want others to see in you. It's not their job to find your spark, to find your magic, to find your gift. That's your job. You have a responsibility of cultivating whatever beautiful energy that is so that others can just see it in you. That you're a creator, that you're a divine expression of Source. You are actively shaping your reality, whether you're conscious of that or not. And unfortunately, we have so many people moving through Earth and this Earth experience who are not conscious of it and become victims to the Matrix. They subscribe to it. They feel that there's no way out. This is the way it's always been. And this is what I'm stuck with. And you consciously create that reality and build the matrix yourself brick by brick. Last one today. Choosing yourself is the ultimate expression of self-love. I love this one. Not surface level love, not performative self-care. I'm talking about deep self-worth, self-desire, self-respect, the kind of love that changes how you make decisions, the kind that says no when needed, the kind that stops abandoning yourself to be accepted by others or society. When I truly began loving myself, my entire reality shifted. Relationships changed. My work changed drastically. I went from the classroom to running my entrepreneurship journey. My sense of safety inside myself changed. Self love is not soft, it is transformative. And choosing yourself is how self love becomes real. So, if you're listening to this episode in real time, today is January 19th, and I want you to know this. Tonight is our first live call for Return to Love, and it's not too late to join us. If you're standing at your own threshold, if something in you is ready to choose differently, if you're ready to stop postponing yourself, this is your invitation. Enrollment does close tonight at 7 p.m. Pacific time because our first live call is at 7 p.m. And I would love to walk on this journey with you. Choosing yourself changes everything, and it starts with one decision. I'll see you on the other side of that threshold. I love you. Thank you for listening. Expand the life, healing, and happiness of others in your field by sharing this episode. You can get more of my content and other helpful tips by following Raven Rabbit LLC on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. Be sure to comment on Spotify and answer the episode's question so I can keep creating content you love and desire. Thank you so much.